When you think of powers in anime, psychics are always one of the first to come to mind, and anime never misses a chance to use them as well. From early shows like Pokémon all the way now to One Punch Man, there's always at least one character that represents a psychic. But today, I want to take one of the strongest psychics I've ever covered on this channel, Saiki K, and put him up against other psychics to see if he really stands above them all. But before that, if you enjoy this type of content, the goal is 20k, so if you enjoy, sub up. To start off, let's quickly go over Saiki's scaling before we put him up against the rest of the anime psychics. And keep in mind, there are a lot of psychics in anime, so I won't be covering every single one, but instead I'll focus on the characters who actually come to mind when you think of a psychic. Plus, one character you probably won't expect to count as a psychic, but we'll get to her at the end. Now, Saiki is a character who's actually a bit tricky to scale because of how his limiters work. With them on, his attack potency caps around star level, since it's implied he was about to move or destroy the sun in his sleep. But what's even more impressive is Kid Saiki, who might genuinely be the strongest version we've ever seen in the series, with statements implying he was far above his current high score self with limiters on. For the sake of consistency though, I'll be using the same scaling applied in my Goku vs Saiki K video, a 200 time multiplier when Saiki removes his limiters. That boost pushes his attack potency up the large star level and his speed to around 1400 times FDL, or MFDL+. But we can't forget Saiki is a psychic, and his real powers come from his hacks. His ability list is so absurdly long that covering every single power would take an entire video on its own, so I'll stick to the abilities that actually matter when comparing him to other psychics. These powers include astral projection, bilocation, creating clones with identical power, clairvoyance, flight, hypnosis, invisibility, mediumship, memory alteration, mind control that basically functions as reality warping since he can rewrite the rules of the world, petrification, which is broken in a one-on-one fight, precognition, usually before dangerous situations, psychokinesis/telekinesis, restoration, where he can rewind time on an object or person by up to 7 years, size augmentation, telepathy, teleportation, where he can travel to different worlds or isekai to even parallel universes, and even time travel/time leaping. Now, those aren't even close to all of Saiki's abilities, but even just from this selection, it's easy to see why people argue that Saiki might be the strongest psychic in anime. And it doesn't stop there. His strongest feats actually come from the Saiki K novel, where he performs a meta level attack that counters psi energy, which is a force from another dimension created by the readers themselves. By cancelling out an energy source that originates from the real world, Saiki shows a level of meta potency that reaches 5D, or low 1C tier of attack potency. The only caveat is that Saiki needed to use bilocation or an alternate self to pull off this feat, but even then, it's still his power being used. So, with all of that being covered, let's see how the other psychics in anime stack up against him. First on the list is Kageyama Shigeo from Mob Psycho 100, easily one of my favorite psychics in anime. He has plenty of impressive attack potency showings, especially during his fight against the boss. But since he's going up against Saiki, we're skipping straight to Mob's strongest feats. Mogami, hyped up as the greatest psychic of the 20th century, traps Mob inside a pocket dimension built from thousands of absorbed spirits. Inside it, Mogami controls everything. And after months of psychological torture, Mob finally reaches mysterious percentage. In the anime, the entire dimension cracks apart like glass, revealing a star-filled void as it collapses. And this mental world contains a real city, sky, and a horizon, and is made of spirit matter which functions the same as physical matter. Destroying it means overpowering both Mogami and the thousands of spirits sustaining the dimension. Calculations places the destruction at multi-continental. Some argue it's just a dream feat and that the visuals are an anime exaggeration. However, characters can die in this world. Mob interacts with everything physically. It's not star or solar system level, but multi-continental is absolutely reasonable. Mob shattered a dimension powered by thousands of spirits and broke Mogami's entire domain. For speed, Mob easily scales above characters like Teru and Shimazaki, who sit around subsonic plus. His real speed scaling comes from his fight with the boss. At first, even at 100%, Mob gets blitzed, and that's already a form that blitzes Teru and Shimazaki. But as the fight goes on, Mob power climbs so rapidly that he outright surpasses the boss and even has to contain his energy. Because Mob ends up well above the boss at his peak, his speed reasonably lands in the massively hypersonic plus ranges. And if you really want to highball his final power-up jump, you could argue relativistic plus, but to keep it safe, we can say massively hypersonic plus. As for the psychic abilities or hacks, Mob has his signature barrier, which lets him tank attacks from anyone weaker than him. He also has astral projection and soul interaction, allowing him to separate his soul, fight non-corporeal entities, or directly enter an opponent's mind. On top of that, he can destroy or reconstruct buildings depending on his emotional state. But the problem is, Saiki can do all of this and far more. His mind control alone completely outclasses anything Mob can defend against. So in terms of hacks and general stats, Saiki wipes the floor with Mob. Next up is the S-Class Rank 2 hero, Tatsumaki. She has casual feats that range from stopping sea-level bombardments to pulling meteors from space, at least in the anime. But since she's facing a heavyweight, we're skipping straight to her absolute peak during the Monster Association arc. The monster Psychology, a fusion of Psychic Psychos and the Monster King Orochi, fires a beam that slices a massive disc of the Earth's surface. The beam cuts through oceanic crust and lifts a continent-sized landmass high into the atmosphere instantly. But Tatsumaki casually halts the attack and then proceeds to twist the entire Z City and the Monster Association base into a massive drill to wring the life out of her opponent. Calculations for slicing and lifting that much of the Earth's crust place the energy output squarely at multi-continental. As for speed, chapter 156 makes it clear that Saitama, Garo, Blast, and Platinum Sperm all surpass Flashy Flash, who is directly stated to be faster than light. And since Tatsumaki is ranked above him and consistently portrayed as stronger, it's reasonable to place her at FDL Plus as well. As for her hacks, Tatsumaki actually has less versatility than Mob. Her toolkit is centered around telekinesis with only a few secondary abilities. Against Saiki, who has mind control, biolocation, precognition, time manipulation, and dozens of other hacks, she gets completely outclassed and outhaxed. However, if she was in a fight against Mob, she would most likely come out on top as well, but it would be a close fight. Moving on, we have one of the most iconic and infamous sidekicks in all of anime, Mewtwo, the legendary Pokémon. He outright states that he can create a storm powerful enough to destroy the world, or at the very least wipe out humanity, and this is compared to a legendary storm that once nearly eradicated all Pokémon. And yes, this will place Mewtwo above nearly every Pokémon in the series, with the obvious exception of Arceus. That includes characters like Deoxys, who has been calculated at planetary level of power. There are also multiple feats in the Pokémon franchise showing characters casually tearing open space or creating raptures big enough to access alternate dimensions. Mewtwo himself demonstrates this by creating his own pocket dimension filled with thousands of stars, which already pushes him into multi-solar system level territory. But it gets even more extreme. Giovanni states outright that if Mewtwo ever lost control, his power could destroy the world. And in the broader Pokemon cosmology, we know that the birth of Palkia caused the boundaries of reality to collapse, revealing an infinite sky beyond the world. Scaling from this cosmology, it places Mewtwo's potential attack potency at universal levels. Now for speed, in Pokemon lore, the meteor containing Deoxys travel from the edge of the Milky Way to Earth in just 10 days. To cross roughly 270,000 light years that quickly, it will need to be moving at around 295 trillion meters per second, nearly 1 million times the speed of light, or MFTL+. And since Mewtwo is consistently portrayed as the world's strongest Pokemon and is shown reacting to or keeping pace with Deoxys across multiple forms of meteor, he scales directly above this speed. Of course, world's strongest excludes Arceus, but it does put Mewtwo on par with or above the creation trio, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina. This lets us look at their cosmology for higher end speed scaling. Giratina, for example, embodies an anti-world, a realm that exists as a paradox of space and time. Operating within or beyond such a concept implies movement unbound by linear time altogether, which aligns with immeasurable speed, placing Mewtwo on the same tier as well. But we can't forget, Mewtwo is a psychic, which means he comes with a dangerous set of hacks. Two of the most important are memory manipulation and power nullification. First, Memory manipulation. In the first movie, Mewtwo wipes the memories of everyone involved from a massive distance, including people far outside his castle. No one on the main island remembers the trainers leaving from the new island, which gives Mewtwo an insane level of memory erasure. Second, and arguably even more dangerous in a psychic versus psychic matchup, is power nullification. Mewtwo can disable the abilities of every Pokemon around him, forcing them to fight with pure physical strength. This would extend to supernatural abilities as well, including Saiki's. Now, Saiki does have regeneration towards power loss. His power slowly returns even when he permanently removes them, but that recovery takes time. In a direct one-on-one fight, that delay is a huge disadvantage. Combine Mewtwo's memory erasure with his far superior speed scaling and the outcome becomes pretty clear. Mewtwo takes the win. Last on this list we have Suzumiya Haruhi, the leader of the SOS Brigade, and without realizing it, the god of her own universe. And I know some of you might be confused about why she's even here, but out of every character mentioned so far, Haruhi is the one who most closely resembles Saiki. Like him, she has passive, unconscious reality-altering authority, but on a level far beyond most psychics, and far above Saiki's as well. Haruhi can create and erase data, matter, space, and time on a universal scale. One of her most memorable feats happened 3 years before the series even began. She got bored with the world, and in that moment, she unconsciously erased the entire universe and then rebuilt it from scratch according to her preferences. This was so catastrophic that it caused a temporal shockwave or a time quake, preventing time travelers from going back more than 3 years, because time itself didn't exist before her reset. Due to this, most casual watchers think Haruhi is just a universal reality warper with timeline resets, but that's nowhere close. To find her actual ceiling, we need to look at the deep lore, specifically the data integration thought entity. This entity is a higher dimensional, information-based being that views the entire physical universe as primitive, low-level data. It transcends normal space-time, yet Haruhi is above it. She restricts its ability to travel through time, dictates the limits of its observation, and possesses the potential to rewrite the data that forms all existence, including theirs. The entity doesn't study her because she's powerful, but it studies her because she's something it cannot understand or control even with their higher dimensional beings. Manipulating information on this level places Haruhi's attack potency at hyperversal or high 1B, and the dimensional structure she unconsciously creates is compared to a polyhedron with an unknown, potentially extremely large number of sides. If interpreted literally, this can imply control over dozens to hundreds of dimensions, possibly more. Naturally, this places Haruhi's speed at immeasurable, since characters like Yuki Nagato can freely move across time planes and higher dimensional spaces. But due to Haruhi standing above beings like Yuki, her traversal isn't restricted by time or dimensional structure at all. In fact, Haruhi may even qualify as omnipresent within her cosmology. As the unconscious creator of all existence, she exists across every iteration of reality simultaneously and is fundamentally intertwined with the totality of creation itself. However, when it comes to a direct fight between Saiki and Haruhi, things get a little complicated. Haruhi's physical form is just an ordinary human, but her cosmic authority is anything but ordinary. So in practice, Saiki would likely be unable to harm her at all, simply because Haruhi's unconscious reality manipulation would stop anything that threatens her. Even characters like Yuki Nagato, who exist on a higher informational plane, could give Saiki serious trouble due to the nature of her existence alone. So to keep things consistent with the cosmology and the hierarchy of their verse, the win ultimately goes to Haruhi. So with all that said, does Saiki solo every psychic in anime? No, but he comes close. Saiki has one of the most versatile and overwhelming hacks arsenal of any psychic character ever written. But there are outliers, beings who operate on higher dimensional cosmology or metaphysical frameworks that simply exceed Saiki's raw capability. Against characters like Mewtwo, whose speeds far surpass Saiki, are also being backed up from hacks or psychic abilities, or entities tied to higher layer of existence like Haruhi. Even Saiki's power hits a ceiling.